Agent Holt, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Yes, Brandt, Holt.
Thank you. You are currently employed at the Cheatham County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
And what's your position there?
I'm a sergeant on the B shift detail days patrol.
Thank you. In April of 2018, were you an employee of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation?
Yes, sir.
And what was your position with the TBI?
I was a special agent assigned to the Criminal Investigation Division for Middle Tennessee,
Thank
Tennessee
you.
Bureau of Investigation.
And before your employment with the TBI, where were you employed?
I was employed with the Springfield Police Department.
Thank you. So Agent Holt, on April the 7th of 2018, I'm now referring to the investigation into Joseph and Crystal Daniels. How did you become involved?
From my recollection, sir, we were at a funeral for a Kentucky police officer who was killed, I believe it was Officer Meacham, when we were advised that there was a missing juvenile here in Dixon County. That's
Okay.
how we began to be involved.
Were you the lead in the investigation in Dixon County or just assisting?
Assisting, sir.
All right. And I want to specifically go to the day of April the 7th, 2018. Did you have an interaction with the defendant, Joseph Daniels?
Yes, sir.
And where did that interaction occur?
It started at the jail, sir.
The Dixon County Jail?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember about what time that was?
No, sir, I don't recall exactly what time, sir.
Was it a little bit before noon?
Yes, sir. Some
Thank you.
morning time.
How were you notified to go to the Dixon County Jail? Or were you notified?
I was notified, I believe, by Agent Joy Boyd that we needed to go get Mr. Daniels out of jail.
Okay. Had Mr. Daniels requested law enforcement to come speak with him?
I believe so, sir.
Okay. And when you did arrive at the jail, did you go through a Miranda warning with the defendant?
I did not, sir, but I was present when Agent Boyd did.
Okay. Did Agent Boyd attempt to Mirandize the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And best of your recollection, how did that go?
From my recollection, sir, we were actually pulling out of the Sally Port when that information was presented concerning Miranda warnings, and I believe that Mr. Daniels began quoting some of that information.
And you made a report to that extent, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you have your report with you today?
I do, sir.
And I
IR 16.
Yes, sir. And I want to refer you to that because you have some things in quotation marks.
Would you like for me to recite what's in
Well,
quotation, sir?
I want you to take a second to refresh your memory with
Yes,
what
sir.
exactly was said to Mr. Daniels and how he responded.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what was said to the defendant?
He was reminded of his Miranda rights by Special Agent Boyd, and that he replied, "Yeah, I have the right to remain silent. Anything I say can be used against me in court." Mr. Daniels was also reminded that he did not have to speak with agents about his son.
Okay. And what did...
not speak with agent?
I'm sorry, say again, ma'am.
I just didn't hear the last part of your answer. Daniels was also reminded that he did not speak with agent.
That he did not have to speak with agents about his son, ma'am.
Sorry.
Did Mr. Daniels say that he wanted to help make things right?
Yes.
And you reflected that in your report.
Yes, sir.
And again, you and Agent Boyd go to the Dixon County Jail at the defendant's request.
Yes, sir.
All right. When you get him out, I guess you place him in a vehicle, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I was driving my vehicle, sir.
Okay. And you leave from the Dixon County Jail, and where do you go?
We went and got food and water from out there on 3rd Street, and then we tried to make sure that we masked his identity with putting a coat over him.
Okay. When you say you got food and water for the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And I believe it came from the American Red Cross. They had set up a kind of a pavilion or a tent helping provide food and water to everybody that was involved?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you've testified that you tried to mask the identity of the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Why was that?
Just to protect his identity with him riding with us, sir, and to prevent any potential issues.
Okay. So you get him out of the jail, you head to 3rd Street, which is near the defendant's residence, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Over in the Garners Creek area?
Yes, sir.
And what is your intent? Do you intend to take the defendant?
The intent was to take the defendant to a location where he stated that he would be able to provide us for the location where the child was.
Okay, so he'd called you up to the jail and wants to take you to the location where he placed baby Joe.
Yes, sir.
Where did you go?
We traveled south into Hickman County, Highway 48, and we stopped at several bridges.
Why did you stop at several bridges?
Because the information that he had described during this encounter with Mr. Daniels was that he had placed the child off of the bridge into the water.
Into the water?
Yes, sir.
All right, so he's given you kind of a general area of Hickman County off of a bridge.
Yes, sir.
And how many bridges did you stop at?
If I recall correctly, we went across 3 or 4 bridges, and we stopped particularly at one called the Piney River.
Okay. And did the defendant make any statements in this transport and in this kind of traveling from bridge to bridge about his son and what he had done to him?
Yes, sir.
What did
He elaborated that he drove his son's body in the trunk to Hickman County because his son loved water. I do recall that, and then that it was near a sign had Piney on it, and that once we were able to get to the Piney River, that's where he stated that he took the body from the trunk of the vehicle and threw it over the bridge.
Okay. Did you and Agent Boyd and the defendant actually get out of the vehicle at these bridges?
I believe particularly at the Piney, yes, sir.
And did you make your way down to the water?
We did go down and search after dropping Mr. Daniels back off.
Okay. But I'm talking specifically about while the defendant was with you.
I do not believe that we ever left contact with Mr. Daniels at all,
Okay.
sir. During that.
After stopping at 3 or 4 bridges, did the defendant mention that he didn't bring his son to these bridges? And I'm referring you to the last sentence of the first paragraph on page 2.
Yes, sir. He stated that he did not know anything and he didn't bring his son to these bridges.
All right. At approximately 1:07 p.m., you and Agent Boyd stopped at another bridge, and what did you do for the defendant or with him?
So the breakfast burritos were McDonald's burritos, and we actually stopped and let him eat.
Okay. So you'd already given him some food and water from the Red Cross. You're out there long enough where you want to give him some lunch, I guess?
Yes, sir. That's what we'd actually taken from the American Red Cross.
Oh, okay. All right. And then it says at 2:06 p.m., you transported the defendant to the area of McElhaney Road. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And who was in this area?
It's going to be his father.
And do you remember his father's name?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know what they refer to him as? Big Joe or Joe? Joseph?
Big Joe.
Similar name with the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm asking that because I want to make sure that in your testimony we are very clear about who you are speaking of, whether it's the defendant or the defendant's father.
Yes, sir.
Okay. At some point, did the defendant's father get into your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And what happened then?
Mr. Daniels
Now,
did
Mr. Daniels, the defendant's father?
No, the defendant.
All right, let's call him the defendant.
Yes, sir. I apologize. The defendant did make statements in front of the presence of his father.
What did he say?
That he had beaten the child.
That he had beaten the child?
Yes, sir.
And he made these statements in front of his own father?
Yes, sir.
And this occurred inside your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what happened when he said that? Was there a reaction from the defendant's father?
With me sitting up front, I could not see any physical reactions, but he then mentioned Crystal Daniels.
Who mentioned Crystal Daniels?
The defendant's father.
Okay. What did the defendant's father say about Crystal Daniels?
That maybe she could have been responsible for it.
Okay. And what did the defendant say in response to the defendant's father's statement about Crystal Daniels. And I'm going to refer you to your third paragraph on page 2 at approximately 2:06.
He did attempt to, he attempted to place blame then on Crystal.
Okay. Then it says at approximately 3:23 p.m. with an ending mileage, the defendant was brought back to the Dixon County Sheriff's Office. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you have a final paragraph, and I want you to take a second and review that, and then I'll ask you some questions.
Okay, sir.
You kind of, it appears, make a note to observe what the defendant is doing on the way back to the sheriff's department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And-
And during the entire,
Okay.
during the entire drive, the biggest things that were consistent.
Well, tell us what you noted.
The consistency was that he had beaten the child, sir.
That he had beaten the child?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else?
And that he had put the body of the child in the trunk to dispose of it.
Did he cry at any point?
Yes, sir, numerous times.
Numerous times?
Yes, sir.
And did you make a note about his reluctance to take you to the location of the body?
Yes, sir. I did, sir.
What did you say?
That he couldn't remember. What did he say or what did I say?
In your report, you said Daniels was reluctant to provide a location for his son. Is that how you remember it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Daniels reiterated on multiple occasions that he had beaten his son to death and that his other son, Alex, saw it and will have to relive that the rest of his life.
Yes, sir.
Now, that's your words reflecting what the defendant said to you.
Yes, sir.
And is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, that essentially ends your communication and time with the defendant on April the 7th of 2018. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I want to now refer you to April the 11th of 2018. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Did the defendant again ask to speak with TBI agents?
Yes, sir.
And again, you and Agent Boyd went to the Dixon County Jail.
Yes, sir.
And this time, did you actually have the defendant complete and sign a TBI constitutional waiver rights?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Agent Boyd, can you identify this document, please?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
It is a Tennessee Bureau of Investigation warning as to constitutional rights. File number NA-5A-0000386 with a positive identification for signature for Joy Boyd and for myself, dated 4/11/18 at 8:12 p.m.
Thank you. I'll move that as the state's next exhibit, please. Agent, you may not know the answer to this, but you may. Do you know how many times over the course of a 4 or 5 day period the defendant was Mirandized? And you may not know. It's
Only
okay.
the two that I know of at least two, sir, that I were present.
At least two that you were
Yes, sir.
present for. Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness.